get up, get up, get up.
What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to episode 114 of the Mets Up Podcast, the official podcast of the New York Mets. Today, we have an action-packed episode. We had the series against the Washington Nationals, cool. A guy named Jacob deGrom pitched. That's really cool. Max Scherzer pitched. Chris Bassett, the big three, was on the mound for a series out in Washington, which is really, really nice. We also have the trade deadline. Everybody wants to talk about it. It is the hot-button topic issue right now in Mets world, so we're going to go over all the trade deadline acquisitions, as well as maybe some that they didn't make, as well as just kind of the big moves all around the league. So make sure you guys stick around for this episode. It is going to be a action-packed one coming at you. If you are not yet following us on our social media, check us out at MetsUp everywhere, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Just dropped a TikTok with Chris Bassett. It's a great one. You should check it out. Make sure you follow us over there. If you're looking for the YouTube version of this, go to the New York Mets YouTube channel and subscribe over there so that you don't miss out on any of the video episodes coming out at you. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get them, drop us a rating, drop us a review, subscribe, download, do everything that you can over there. We really do appreciate it. And James, let's bring you in. How you doing, man?
Really good. Notice that you gave the Bassett, Scherzer, deGrom trio the big three name.
The big three, yeah.
Interesting. You just did that off the cuff.
I just did that off the cuff. That wasn't planned. That wasn't written down anywhere in our notes. I mean, you did all the notes today. I didn't type anything. We were out in Washington for Game 2, and I've come home since then, and I have sat on my couch. I took a nap. I really didn't do much since then. I watched the game, though. I watched Game 3.
There you go. Of course, that's the least you could probably do. I've had a hectic day since then. I took a short nap after we got back. Then I worked. I went for a run, made some food, did all this. Now we're here. Nice early recording.
I feel like the last 48 hours, last 72 hours, especially with the trade deadline, and personally for me moving into the new apartment, it has been absolute chaos, plus going to D.C., plus coming back. It's been absolutely insane, and I feel like that's a perfect way to start this episode. Let's talk about the trade deadline. Just wrapped up yesterday. The Mets made some moves. The Mets also didn't make some moves in terms of what other people thought they should have made. But honestly, at the end of the day, James, I'd love to get your opinion as what you thought this deadline was for the Mets.
I thought it was fine. I thought the Mets just kind of almost identified every single hole they had and like plugged as many as they saw fit to plug. They didn't get a catcher. We knew that. But I think that everyone, when they think about trades, they always think about the players going in, but they think less about not the players going out in the trade, but the players going out of a roster. So if the Mets were to acquire any kind of starting caliber catcher, they would have had to designate one of their catchers for assignment. It seems like they, at least for varying reasons, are high on them, and not even high on them, but it's just, I don't know. We've been spending a lot of time in and around this team. I could never imagine them designating Tomas Nido for assignment the way that he's like become a bit of an emotional leader, and as highly as all the pitchers speak about him.
And I don't think it would be James McCann, who's signed to a pretty decent contract with the Mets, and he's coming back from injury, I know, but like, would Wilson Contreras been an upgrade for this team offensively? No doubt. I mean, he is just one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball right now, but also at the same time, he didn't get traded. He's still on the Chicago Cubs. There was clearly a really, really high asking price on a guy like Wilson Contreras, especially because they were remember when they were trying to package him up with David Robertson, and then I don't want to say traded him to Philly for scraps, but they traded him for one prospect.
Yeah, that one prospect did get a lot of flack online. People were just making fun of the fact that there was some guy named Benny Brown no one heard of, but we looked into him. He's actually a pop-up prospect this year. The Phillies have had a couple of their lower minors pitching prospects just get good all of a sudden, and Andrew Brown's a guy, not Andrew Brown. Ben Brown is a guy they drafted out of high school who's taken a few years, but seems like he's matured. He's averaging it was like almost 11 strikeouts per nine, right?
Yeah, he's been really good. That. I mean,
because I think a lot of Mets fans were specifically angry at that trade because it seemed like the Phillies gave up a prospect that wasn't very good because the tweet went around that he was ranked like 28th of all Phillies prospects. That was a ranking from the preseason before he got good.
And that was also like foolish too, because like MLB pipeline rankings relatively for the most part are kind of nonsense really at the end of the day. Like, the top 5 guys are usually legit, but outside of that, it's kind of just all nonsense.
And the biggest thing there was that David Robertson's a pitcher that everybody knows. Like he's popular and famous. So that's an easy thing to be like, we didn't get this guy and that's his name and now I'm upset. And also the one thing that was, I would say, somewhat disappointing is that the Mets did not get that lefty reliever a lot of people wanted, including both of us. But I think they're just going to ride with internal options. Like, they still have Alex Claudio, who's been medium. I don't know. I don't have.
He's a wily veteran. I'll call him that. He's a wily veteran.
Crafty.
He's crafty. He's herky jerky. He throws like submarine sidearm left-handed stuff. Like, I think also too, the left-handed reliever need is being overblown. It's not necessarily that I don't think the Mets could have improved there. I'm not saying that. I would have liked a better left-handed option, of course. I think that would have been an improvement for this team. But especially with Juan Soto now leaving this division and Bryce Harper being out for the year, the big left-handed bats are down to what? Like Matt Olson? That's kind of it.
That's not even what it's about. It's not about the big lefty bats in your division. It's just about being able to mix and match better at the end of games against whoever. And also, we say Matt Olson against lefties. He has 2 home runs off David Peterson already this year against the lefty. Yeah,
and like I think with the 3-batter minimum rule too,
that's where I was going.
You should be focused on relievers that are going to get everybody out rather than a guy who's just one-sided.
Yeah, just good pitchers. Like, if you're getting a righty reliever, let's say the Mets got a righty reliever who we think might be pretty good. Like, if that's as valuable as getting a lefty one. I think it's just people kind of have these check boxes when they're watching their own team at the trade deadline, and none of these boxes. Yeah, I understand the anger. I don't understand the level of anger.
No.
I understand like a bit of disappointment. I understand being underwhelmed is the word we could use, but I don't understand people being like, this was a wasted opportunity. Like, it maybe theoretically is a wasted opportunity, but I don't know. I don't know what move the Mets really could have made that could have quenched these thirsts.
It feels like everyone was like, for the left-handed reliever, calling for Chafin, who I know we've talked about on this podcast too, has looked good. But again, like, it seems like the price for these guys were really high, and I trust the Mets internals right now. We've talked highly about how smart this organization has got, how many numbers guys, how many dudes that are just way smarter than we can even imagine. Ben Zausmer being like the head of those numbers. And I just trust that they understand the value that these guys would have brought in and must have realized that it was marginal based on what they would have had given up, you know?
And even just marginal based on what they would have been improving on what they already had. Like, I don't know. Like, I just think that this Mets bullpen has gotten too much flack this year for being something that's not even that bad. It also seems like they are going to commit to trying out David Peterson in a bullpen role given the health of the rest of the rotation. Like, they gave him 2 outings there already. They didn't go particularly well, but it seems he's going to start this weekend for the doubleheader. We're going to talk about the Braves all the way at the end of this episode. But it seems like that is someone who's going to be a lefty reliever for us. And they also got Phillip Deal last week in the Naquin deal, so I don't know what's going to happen. But before we just talk about like big picture things, we got to just talk about the 2 players the Mets did actually acquire.
Yes.
Michael Givens and Darren Ruff. I'm going to start Michael Givens because he just had a horrific outing, and Mets fans are ready to literally just throw him off the Queensboro Bridge.
I'm going to defer to you on this one because I know you're the pitching guy. I'll take Darren Ruff after this, but like it's very fitting.
It's amazing. It's nothing better than it.
Well, even with, I guess we'll talk about it in game 2 afterwards, but the perfect storm of overreactions was like the last 48 hours for Mets fans.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just going to help everyone try and get back to level because I do believe that Michael Givens is good. He's a guy who's always had pretty good results in his career despite pitching for not only at the time some of very dumb organizations, but the worst ballparks in all baseball to pitch in. Colorado, Cincinnati, Baltimore before the fence got moved in, whereas 3 teams before this year. And he was still like a guy who had good results over his career. I did my relief pitcher free agent rankings in the offseason. I think he was like inside my top 10 along with Adam Ottavino, Jake Diekman, and Chafin was towards the back end of that, and not Familia. I'm not going to do that. I can't go through it all now. I kind of forget.
Yeah, don't worry about it now. Yeah.
Givens, if anyone did watch him today and like didn't like pull their hair out, he has a very unique release point on his fastball. He gets like really good extension, but he's also kind of like this like sidearmy thing, which is really similar to your favorite pitcher, Paul Sewald.
Yes.
That's kind of the exact same mold there because he has the good fastball that has like slightly above average velocity, sitting like 94, 95, gets up to 96, but with really good ride. So has that rising action, which is more unique because he comes from a sidearm and still gets a good backspin on it. And he has a really good slider that he's been throwing more this year that helped him to have one of the best halves that he ever had in his career from when he came this year with the Cubs before he got traded here. And even with that slider being thrown more this year, I expect Jeremy Hefner, just he's done that basically every pitcher on this team, to be like throw it more.
Yes.
And he also has a legit changeup. That was always his secondary pitch in his career. And the fact that he's like a true 3-pitch reliever is like something pretty rare in the league. There's not many guys who could say like they have 3+ pitches. Like he had a 30% strikeout rate with the Cubs this year, 2.60 ERA, and Wednesday was terrible. But Wednesday was the first time he'd allowed an earned run since June 14th. 17 appearances.
He was due. It just happened to be
100%.
in his
9-0
first
game.
appearance
Great
with the
time
Mets.
to do it. Yeah, it was definitely the perfect storm of people being like, we got this reliever who I don't really recognize and who I'm just going to have to not like because his name isn't Andrew Chafin or David Robertson. And now I'm going to freak out because he gave up runs against Nationals in his first game.
Yeah, especially after what happened in Game 2, losing to the Nationals in Game 2. Like, it was the perfect storm again. And then to talk about the other pickup that they got, Darren Ruff, he's good. He's good at what he does. He crushes left-handed pitching. I got some slack on the internet, on social media.
Flack.
Well, both. I got a little bit of both. I'm gonna use caught a little
Slack is
slack.
like if someone gives you slack, that'd be like a good thing. That means they give you more room.
I thought you could catch a little slack too. You know, it's just flack.
It's catching flack, giving
Okay,
slack.
I'm so bad at these sayings. It's shockingly.
You have them all really close.
I'm like my dad. My dad does this. And it just hit me that I'm very similar to my dad, which is quite the revelation. But anyway, I was catching a lot of flack on Twitter because I said Darren Ruff crushes lefties. Really struggling out here today. And he does. He has like an 870 OPS against lefties this year. The reason his numbers are down this year compared to last year is that the Giants just played him straight up more. Last year, he basically only played against left-handed pitching, and his numbers were really good. And this year, he had to play against righties a lot more. So, yeah, he's not a complete player in the way that you don't want him facing a top right-handed reliever in the game. But the way that the Mets have now built out this roster, he takes the spot of J.D. Davis, who obviously got traded in this move. And then you have a guy like Daniel Vogelback or even Tyler Naquin taking over that Dom Smith spot, where now they're the improved DH platoon combo, whatever it's going to be. And those three guys all do their one thing really, really well. Darren Ruff is one of them. He's also had an incredibly hot last 2 months.
Yeah, Ruff, you mentioned it before, but he was playing every single day for the first 2 months of the year because the Giants were just irrecoverably banged up. Yeah, so he basically an everyday player. His stats were terrible, and it was kind of hurting his entire game, which is funny. He had more at-bats against righties than lefties for the first 2 months of the year, which is something that he didn't do very much at all last year. And over those 2 months, he had 0 home runs. Since they put him back in his preferred role of just kind of facing the lefties, he has 11 home runs since May 1st. And that's not really the biggest sample for a lot of these hitting stats, but since May 1st, he has a 320 ISO, 165 WRC+, and 946 OPS against left-handed pitching.
Crushes it. I mean, what was the stat you told me on the train yesterday about his home runs?
I tweeted, Darren Ruff has more home runs. It's so mean. He has more home runs since May 1st of this year than J.D. Davis has since the beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
11 versus 9. It's tough. It's really tough, but it's true.
Yeah, and I get it. J.D. Davis was our guy. We had some really good moments with him. I wish the best for him out in San Francisco. Go kill it. Go have a great year. I really won't bother me, especially he's going back home. I'm sure it's going to be nice for him too.
And there's a chance he does put it together and have that great year. Just needs to make more contact. But we couldn't spend this next 2 months worrying about J.D. Davis' development. Just give me someone who could do it. And along with that power against lefties, Darren Ruff has one of the highest walk rates in baseball, about 12%. Him and Vogelback together, just tie a rope around them. They're one DH now, and they're elite.
Yeah, they're really good at what they do. Good at bats, crush the opposite arms that they see. And I mean, we saw it this weekend too, or this week with Daniel Vogelback. Dude swings the bat really well against righties.
And people were upset about the return in this trade because the Mets gave up 4 players for someone who's as one-dimensional as it gets. But there was also 2 single-A pitchers who kind of popped up this year who, I mean, there's not even a great chance either of those guys ever reach the majors. If they do, there's a better chance it's as a reliever than as a starter. And then Thomas Sapucki, who Mets fans were ready to, again, similarly to Michael Gibbons, throw off a bridge a few weeks ago. And then J.D. Davis, who's just probably the 40-man spot. But that's what.
At some point, you have to move on, and it felt like it was the appropriate time to move on from JD. I think the guy's still a really good hitter, but it just doesn't feel like right now with this Mets team, he fits into this roster, especially if we are trying to win now. I know there was other bats you could have gone after.
He theoretically fits into the Mets roster. He just wasn't exactly performing.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just with that performance, you can't really continue to run a guy out there every single day, or at least against the lefties, when you can get better options, which is what they did with Darren Ruff. He is no doubt better than J.D. Davis against left-handed pitching right now.
100%. He's also been hitting. This is hilarious, and this is just kind of just being goofy. But he has been significantly better at the plate than was J.D. Martinez over the last 3 months as well.
Ooh, that's a fun one. And J.D.'s swinging the bat well too.
has not really swung the bat well. JD had a good April, a really amazing May, and then June, July. Yeah, June, July, he's just fallen off a little bit, which is that could happen to a player when he gets old. It's just the downslide can sneak up on you. I'm not saying that Darren Ruff's better than JD Martinez. I'm just saying that his last 2 months of results have been better than JD Martinez. So in baseball, you can find production in many different ways, and I think the Mets are trying to find their production unique ways right now.
I mean, I really didn't think coming out of this deadline, we would improve as much as we did, which is going to be hard for a lot of people to hear. They probably were just like, improve? We got Darren Ruff, we got Daniel Vogel. Who are these guys?
One guy told me the Mets got worse because we traded Colin Holderman.
That's just patently incorrect. I mean, that's so bad. But, you think about the moves they made. You got Naquin. That's an improvement over Jankowski. You got Darren Ruff. That's an improvement over JD. You got Daniel Vogel back. That's an improvement over Dom. Trevor May came back today, looked good in an inning, which we'll talk about later. And Michael Givens was an improvement on whoever's going to be the last arm in the bullpen. So this Mets team...
Even if you think he's the last arm in the bullpen, he's better than the old last guy.
Yeah, he's better than Steven Nagosic or Yohan Lopez, whoever takes up that last spot on a given day. But at the end of the day, I just don't... I understand why people are upset because, like we said at the beginning of this, you didn't get the big name. You didn't get the headline. You didn't get the back page of the paper. You see the Yankees get Frankie Montas, and you didn't get the back page of the paper. Last
year, the Mets did get the back page of the paper. The guy produced really well. He was one of the better in terms of just you're only looking at production
in a vacuum.
Looking at production. One of the better trade deadline acquisitions in the modern era, literally, especially at the plate. And Mets fans were miserably furious. You can't win. You just can't win with some Mets fans.
No, you can't win. And we really do hope that those of you who are listening who were upset about this trade deadline, hopefully we've been able to maybe talk you off the ledge a little bit. Because, really, at the end of the day, we were talking about, I do a big thing on my YouTube channel every year, grading the trade deadline acquisitions, grading every teams. And I think the Mets got a B. I don't think it was the best deadline that they could have possibly had. But to think that this Mets team isn't better off than they were before the deadline is just straight up, it's dumb.
Literally, we talked about a lot of year that the bench was probably one of the weakest spots in this team. The bench got dramatically better.
Way better bench. Dramatically. This reminds me a lot of the 2015 trade deadline, except you don't get Yoenis Cespedes, who's the big bat. Yeah. But, improving the bench, we always talk about Juan Uribe, Kelly Johnson, those guys. Mets might have found their kind of Juan Uribe Johnson type players.
And the Mets starting lineup right now has basically, five players who are going to wind up being 5-win players or maybe at least 4-win players and the season's all said and done. So it's kind of easy to say that this team, while it's always great to get as many amazing players as you possibly can at any given moment, just having those guys already in place, being like a Lindor, Nimmo, a Pete, a McNeil, and a Starling, as all guys who are going to be worth about 4 wins above replacement this year. Then you just need to supplement them in, fill the cracks in. The Mets did fill the cracks in.
Definitely. And, of course, we got the biggest trade deadline acquisition of them all, James. You know who that's going to be.
Yeah, of course, Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, of course. It's tell me another team that picked up a better pitcher at the deadline than the Mets with Jacob deGrom.
You can't name one.
Can't name one. Of course, if you're watching the YouTube video with this, I'm squirming because I know I just wound
that's Wilpon talk.
Yeah, I wound 100 people up there, but it was low hanging fruit. I had to take it.
No, that's funny. That was enough by the trade deadline. If you guys have any other questions about it, don't hesitate to tweet at us. Or just you could say you're mad in our comments, just as long as you give a 5-star rating and review. You can literally say anything in those comments. I truthfully don't care. But again, tweet us if you got questions. I have less followers than Mark, so I'm usually much better at answering. But tweet us both. Who cares?
I'm really bad at answering. And the only time
Hollywood Mark.
The only time you get me is when I kind of forget and I look at my replies. I'm like, oh, you hit a nerve. You struck a nerve with me. You got me. I'm completely in. But luckily, I've been getting a little bit better at that for my own sake.
Let's move on to the games.
Let's do it. Let's talk about Game 1 because along with Max Scherzer being on the mound in the first game of the series, we now also know that this was the last game that Juan Soto played as a Washington National, which is also funny because Juan Soto got 4 plate appearances in this game, which is exactly what James predicted in the last estimate. So I literally didn't even have a chance to win this one because James
didn't give you a second to breathe.
Literally hit it right on the head, and of course he gets traded the next day. And it's why was he even playing? What if he got hurt? What are you doing?
Also, if he played in that game, I still would have won because you went under.
I know, but I'm saying if you're gonna trade him the next day, you don't play. Don't risk that. What are you doing, Washington? Think I'm gonna be wearing a tuxedo in April.
It was also really nice that this was Juan Soto's last game as a National, and we saw one of the better games he's, I think, ever played against the Mets. Juan Soto had 4 plate appearances, like Mark said, like I very correctly predicted, up 5-0 in the estimate. He hit a home run. He had 3 walks and 1 outfield assist at home plate, and like an absolute dime to get chugging Tomas Nido around third.
And you know what? Clap it up for Juan Soto. Congratulations. Good game. Your team still lost because we had Mad Max on the mound. The boys were swinging the bat. Scherzer wasn't necessarily at his sharpest, but he's still... That's just how good he is. He doesn't even need to be that sharp.
Yeah, he wound up at the end of it with 6 after coming out in the 7th inning, 6 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs, 3 runs after a weird play in the first. I gave 1 up, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. Weirdly, threw a lot of changeups. Most often he threw changeups since May 8th. Second most often he threw them in any start this year. And only got 1 whiff and 0 called strikes and like no ground balls. I figured maybe he was using the changeup. It was a way to kind of goat some ground balls, but it wasn't. Also threw a lot of colors, so like I kind of see that in the second lowest slider percentage of the year, and see that and think maybe he was just like, I'm gonna pitch the contact today, get the boys some innings here, which is cool. I don't know, it's still effective. I trust anything that Max Scherzer does. Also, I don't know if you caught it.
Who would we be to tell Max Scherzer how to pitch?
I wouldn't even think about it. I'm just seeing what he's doing, and I'm telling you guys.
Yes.
I'm not like I don't analyze Max Scherzer. I just like convey Max Scherzer. I describe Max Scherzer.
The last thing I would ever want to do is get on Max Scherzer's bad side and tell him that I know more than you, Max. That guy is one of the greatest pitchers we've seen in our lifetime, and he could tell me to go jump off a bridge and say how high.
How high? Oh, the bridge? Or
the bridge.
It's the 3rd bridge joke already. We're gonna kill the bridge jokes. There was one moment though in this game. I don't remember if it was between the 5th and the 6th or the 6th and the 7th where Scherzer was talking to Hef, and they were like getting animated. Not that anyone was getting like mad, but there was definitely there was an exchange of opinions, and it was interesting to see these guys both like speak to each other in a way that was like, all right, these are two minds, they're 2 ball players like talking.
And you gotta respect that. Max Scherzer talks to himself like that. So would you talk to yourself like you talk to him?
No,
of course he would.
It's like people with aggressive dogs. Like, no, it just means he loves you.
Yeah, I think that's
he really likes you. That's why he's on top of you.
Yeah, it's endearment. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, Max also now after this start is just 3 wins shy of 200, and he's gonna make 2 starts on the upcoming homestand. So everyone get out to see Max Scherzer if you got a chance because he's a freak.
Especially on that Friday night one against the Braves, which is going to be the blackout, first official blackout. That's going to be fun. We'll talk about that later.
We're talking about Scherzer starts right now.
Yeah.
He's pitching Saturday.
Oh, he's pitching Saturday? I thought they were lining him up to pitch Friday for the shirt.
It's 4 days? You got to pitch on 4 days rest. I don't care about shirts.
I know. Yeah, I know that.
He's pitching Saturday. And then, so that could, you could put him in line to see some pitcher's 200th victory at some point this summer. So keep an eye on that.
Nice. Yeah, Scherzer's been great. And, really at the end of the day, after the Mets got down in the beginning, rallied right back, which is so nice.
Absolutely. Mcneil, Nido, Marte had a couple hits. Pete had a ridiculously low lying home run. Tied lowest launch angle in any home run for Pete's career at 17 degrees. And one of only 14 home runs his entire season, non-inside the park home runs, in Major League Baseball to be hit with a 17-degree launch angle or lower.
Dude absolutely loves hitting in Nats Park. And I know you've told us before it's a sneaky good hitter's park, but it feels like Pete Alonso turns it on there and always plays well.
Definitely. But the biggest home run of the night, the call of the night, actually have to give to Francisco Lindor, who got payback on Steve Cishek for hitting him in the face back in April.
Right after he hit Starling Marte, too.
Bench is clear at this moment. This was a very chippy early season series between the Mets and the Nationals for some reason. And Gary Cohen, as the ball left the yard, Francisco Lindor rounded first base. He exclaimed, "Take that!" Which was just, I couldn't even believe he's let that out.
There's very few times that Gary shows that kind of emotion. That was a personal take that. That was like, take that, Steve Cishek, which is so funny because I don't even think he meant to hit Francisco Lindor on purpose. But I love it. I love that Gary was feeling the energy with the boys. And it's nice to see Francisco Lindor get payback. And like I said, especially right after Marte got hit in that same inning and Buck got to the top of the stairs. He got out, talked to Starling because Starling was like kind of figuring it out, seeing how he was feeling. And you could see Buck murmuring like, this, expletive. I'm going to get him.
The Mets also got hit, like 4 times in this series? 3 times?
Yeah, the Nationals. I think
David Martinez is just a little bit of
he stirs the pot a little bit, I think. He's trying to get any sort of excitement out of that Nationals team, knowing that their best player in franchise history was dead man walking.
He's a habitual line stepper.
Yeah, for sure.
That big line stepper. And also shout out Nimmo. He had 4 hits in this game, 3 hard hit balls. He's been great. And also Johnny Stats giving us a stat as we end this game 1 review here. Pete, over an 1,100 career OPS in Nationals Park.
That's so good that if he was on the Nationals, they would trade him or at least let him walk in free agency.
After 2 or 3 years, they'd love to trade him for a medium return.
Yeah, for a chunk of prospects. That would probably never be as good as the guy you just traded away.
I mean, if we'll do it like in a moment here.
Yeah.
CJ Abrams is an elite prospect, but his power is in question after his first stint in the major leagues. He doesn't strike out very much, but he also is allergic to walks, kind of similar to Luis Garcia, who kind of hit us a little bit this series. Mackenzie Gore's good. Like, I'm sure he'll just be a really good pitcher. He has a chance to be really good.
Although I would keep him as far away from Patrick Corbin as possible.
Don't let them talk. Maybe talk about it. Maybe teach him like the slider or something. I don't know.
Or maybe be like, don't do what he's doing right now.
Patrick Corbin was good. I'm not going to take away Patrick Corbin's career from him. It's just right now he's very bad.
Patrick Corbin was good for like 2 years. He was like the most overrated pitcher that year he got signed. It was I couldn't believe the amount of money that was thrown at him at that time. I got it on tape.
Patrick Corbin was one of the most unheralded World Series heroes in the history of the game.
He did do that.
Pitching in relief in those 2 games, he was fantastic in that role for the national team that had bad bullpen, still won a World Series. And also James Wood and Robert Hassel are both freak prospects.
My guys.
Mark loves Robert Hassel. He's an amazing hit tool, very athletic. I don't know if he's athletic enough to stay in center, but also James Wood is like a lunatic.
So I found out it's because James Wood was someone that I've followed for a really long time because there was a viral clip of him on Twitter.
Big guy.
Big dude, he's 6'7", and he was playing in a high school tournament with a wood bat and hit one of the biggest home runs I've ever seen a child hit.
Loudest.
He was a child at this time, and he pimped it, and he's got a vicious swing, and he's so tall, and seeing someone do that, I was like, who is this guy? Found out information about him. I saw him in the draft. I was like, he should be a first-round pick. Like, there's no reason this guy shouldn't be taking the first round. He's got first-round talent. He fell to the Padres later, and I was like, what an incredible pick. He's going to be used in some trade somewhere someday. And what do you know? They get Juan Soto. Who else they trade? Harlan Susana, who I think is the top international pitching prospect.
18-year-old with a live arm.
Yep. And then, they got Luke Voigt too, didn't they?
Oh, I forgot about Luke Voigt. Yeah. Thank God we missed him.
Yeah, thank God. Although Joey Meneses or whatever that guy's name is did get us in game 2.
Also, though, good for Joey. 10 years in the minor leagues. It was nice to see him getting into the bigs. I didn't like to see him hit the Mets, but I did like to see that he achieved a dream.
Do you think that the Nationals got enough? This isn't a Nationals podcast, but obviously the Mets were interested in Juan Soto. But it seems like the Nationals were never going to trade him to us because
it also seems like the Mets didn't have enough for this kind of offer.
And it's funny because I don't even think that this is enough for Juan Soto personally.
Theoretically, it's not enough, but if it's as much as you're going to get, it's not that bad. The fact they got one pitcher who could be a frontline starter, at least be a 3-4 forever, that's really good. He'll be good. Abrams has potential, and his floor is just kind of like what Ahmed Rosario's doing now, I feel like in Cleveland, which is someone who'll play fine defense at shortstop. Abrams might end up playing plus defense at shortstop. He's just still baseball young. He's just such a freak athlete. He doesn't really know how to play baseball.
Might also play center field.
Yeah, he's just a freak athlete. We'll see if the power comes. Then Wood and Hassel, I feel like one might hit, and they both have incredibly high potentials to play. The return isn't bad. It's just you traded Juan Soto, but if he's not going to take your money, you have no choice. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, I guess I'll give him more money. Give him more.
I mean, that was up to them. If they didn't give him more,
listen, even him going to the Padres doesn't count at the Mets in 2 or 3 years when he hits free agency because I don't think the Padres can actually pay him. Maybe they could. But if you do, you have $1 billion tied up to him, Manny Machado, and Fernando Tatis, which those are 3 really, really good players, and I don't think they aren't worth it. I just don't know if a owner can really afford to fork out $1 billion to 3 guys.
Yeah, and also, they should. Those are 3 great guys to do it. But also,
sure.
just briefly before we move on from this, just to quell Mets fans' fears, just to compare all of those trade chips to what the Mets could have offered, I say Abrams. You might disagree with this, but he still probably covers Alvarez in value just because he plays shortstop.
Probably.
It's probably
tough.
very close. It's probably thin, but I'm sure a team would probably, who just traded for a catcher last year, if they're looking at it from a micro sense, would be I'd rather get the shortstop with elite defense who might have a high potential bat than the catcher who we don't know if he could ever play defense there, and we really have a catcher who we like for the future. And then you look at Mackenzie Gore, the Mets would have offered Peterson or Mcneil. Gore is significantly better than each of them. Then
at
you
least
look
ceiling wise.
Yeah, you look at Wood and Hassel, and that would have been Beatty and Mauricio or Ramirez, and I think those 2 guys pretty easily cover those guys the Mets could have offered.
I agree, yeah.
So they just have more. Other teams have more. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, it is what it is. Glad that Juan Soto's out of the division, though. We only now have to play him when it's the Padres, but boy, oh boy, do I want to avoid the Padres at all costs.
And we'll talk about that before this Braves series. We got to talk about the second game of this series because the boys went to D.C. for this one. Shout out Amtrak. Shout out Jolly Olive bringing us on a wonderful trip down to D.C. Also, shout out the booker of this trip because they accidentally got me a first class ticket.
Yeah, what
while
the hell?
Everyone else was in business class, so I was sitting in first class, bigger seat, more comfortable seat, free food, free beverages. I was crushing high noons, doing like my regular work day, like on the train. I was having a blast.
Capitalist James over here. He gets a job. He's riding
I had a
first
margarita
class.
and I sell a train.
This guy rode across the country during COVID in the back of a truck, in a car basically, and just camped out in the wilderness. And now he's riding first class of a high speed train to Washington D.C. from New York.
It's the duality of man. I can still do both. I'm happy about it, but it was a great trip. We were very nervous at first that we were going to miss the first pitch of this game.
Sweating.
We cut it pretty close.
How about the fact that both of us cut it close just getting there on time? Because the train was leaving at 3:00, and those things pretty much leave on time. Like, once they get there, they kind of take off. So we were like, oh my God, I was taking an Uber, I was taking a train, I was taking a subway, I was flying all over the place. I sprinted half a mile. I haven't done that in, I don't know, 15 years probably. I don't know the last time I've sprinted half a mile with a backpack on through New York City traffic just to find out.
Wait, Mark, you brought a backpack to DC?
Yeah.
What'd you bring in the backpack?
My computer, my camera, my microphone, a lot of things, but I did forget one really important thing to pack.
Guys, Mark took an overnight trip and didn't bring any clothes.
Completely forgot to pack
socks,
a change
underwear.
of
He didn't pack
clothes.
one piece of clothing.
It's
psychotic.
I was worried about missing it, and I knew I forgot something when I left my apartment. It just turned out to be the thing that
lot
is
of something, yeah.
like really important, which is a change of clothes. I wore a Max not a Max Scherzer, Pete Alonso black Mets jersey for about 24 hours straight.
It's so literally disgusting.
But anyway, we sprinted there, and it was late, so it was all for nothing.
Still shout out Amtrak for the hookup. We also had great seats down at the Terra Club in Washington. We had food and drinks, halibut. The Nationals were serving halibut. The Nationals wouldn't pay Juan Soto, and they were serving halibut to the fans.
That's where all that Juan Soto money just went. They're like, well, we just traded a guy that we were going to give
halibut,
$500 million to. We had Chateaubriand, too, which I think is fancy meat. Like, between that, the pork loin, the halibut, they had some good...
They had duck.
They did have duck à l'orange.
Ratatouille.
Like, it was a very, very good spread for Nationals Park. I don't like. But this behind home plate, worth it. 100 and free beer. That was good.
Yeah, and seltzers. But we're just beating around the bush here because the whole story of this night was Jacob deGrom's return to the mound. It was literally it was a surreal moment.
Well, it was really cool because where we were sitting, we were literally right behind the Mets on deck circle, so right next to the dugout, and you see him walk out and run out, and it's all Mets fans in this section. It was dominated by Mets fans over here, and all Mets fans are on their feet. And like when he threw his first warm-up pitch, there was a cheer. I don't know if anyone's ever cheered a warm-up pitch before.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I've said this every single time we talk about deGrom on this show. I had to see it to believe it, and like seeing it, I was like, oh, it's really happening. It felt last year for a little while.
It did. It was really cool to see him pumping 102. I think he threw a 95-mile-an-hour slider. Like, he was, like you said, you have to see it to believe it. And it was a really cool moment because it has been so long since we've seen Jacob deGrom pitch in a Major League Baseball game. So to be there, just by sheer coincidence, the date that we picked ends up being Jacob deGrom's first start of the year. Really, really cool. Wish the outcome would have been better. Not necessarily for Jake. Jake did great, but I wish the Mets would have played better.
Jake did do great. It was he averaged 99.7 miles an hour in his fastball over the 5 innings he threw on Tuesday. Only Hunter Green has had a higher average velocity to start this year, which, I mean, we talked about Hunter Green in the show. He's a freak of nature. And it was very easy for deGrom early. Just 4 strikeouts in the first 2 innings, only 2 balls in play, both on the ground. One did get down the line, but Starling Marte had a great outfield assist.
Sick throw.
His 7th of the year to do that. He threw it, and he just leaned against the fence because he knew it immediately, and just he was cool about it. Then after that, though, deGrom did. I'm not gonna. It was more mortal than it was early. He had 9 whiffs on his first 19 swings in the first 2 innings, then only 4 on 21 swings in the next 3. The ball was being put in play. He did give up a run. He lost 2 ticks, so he went down from 101 to 98, 99. Slider lost a few miles an hour too, but just you can't help but be ridiculously excited about this.
I think it was interesting too. Later in the game, we saw him use the changeup and curveball a lot more than we've seen him use it in the past, where he's basically been a 2-pitch pitcher for the last few years.
Yeah, he threw each of those a few times. Second time around the order, especially, he threw in the Nelson Cruz, a changeup. I didn't even notice the curveballs when we were there, just because I think we were just having so much fun, just freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, we were having a good time.
Yeah, and I saw the curveballs on Savant, and I was like, huh, weird. And I looked back to the curveballs like in the search function. They were kind of curvy-ish. They were kind of slurvy-ish, but curvy-ish, so I guess they're a little slower in the slider. So I guess it was. And Luis Garcia did get a hold of one who, so he's got a good little bat, just refuses to take a walk. Yeah. Got the Nationals up 1-0. But I almost didn't even care so much about the results past the fact that the stuff was good and he looked good.
He looked strong. He looked healthy. It was an encouraging sign moving forward in this Mets season for what is the biggest trade deadline acquisition of any team in Major League Baseball. Mets picking up Jacob deGrom.
I think Juan Soto is objectively a big
acquisition. Yeah, forgot about Juan Soto.
Yeah,
well,
I think I'll give it to him.
Yeah, but he's not on our team, so I'm biased. I'm picking Jacob deGrom. I also, before you say one more thing, I want to shout out the Mets fans that we met at the game as well. After Jacob deGrom went out, I was like, hey, come meet us at this section at the end of the 5th inning. Met a bunch of Mets fans, a bunch of listeners. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate you. Had a great time in Washington. Thank you.
Very sorry we forgot the stickers. We both, in our haste, forgot stickers. I felt kind of bad about that.
Big fumbled the bag. I forgot clothes. I mean, you think I'm going to bring stickers?
The worst part is I found stickers in a compartment of my backpack I didn't even realize were there when I got home today. It's a new backpack. I only got it a week ago, and I found them. I was like, oh, Dad.
You cursed again.
All right, one curse an episode. One curse an episode is not that bad. But the most comforting thing about this Jacob deGrom start was definitely the fact that the Mets offense was in peak deGrom form. Gary or Howie, I forgot who was listening to the game and who said this, seemed to catch deGrom say something to Taijuan Walker on Sunday along the lines of, oh, they never scored 9 runs for me. Which is funny that he has a sense of humor about it. Also from reading a lot of the articles that went out about deGrom this week, seeing that he's like a dry humor, ordinary funny guy in the clubhouse. So a comment like that's even funnier to a guy like Taijuan Walker. But just, of course, the Mets couldn't do anything against Corey Abbott.
And it was funny, too, because they had a really good first inning. They made him work a lot. They had guys on base. Pitches. Yeah, and it was especially with deGrom, and there were a ton of Mets fans in D.C. I won't say they outnumbered Nationals fans, but there was at least 30%, I think, of the people there were at least Mets fans. I was shocked how many people were there, especially after trading the best player in your franchise's history. Okay, let's ask you this, James. How many people in the stadium do you think didn't know Juan Soto was traded? They just thought he was out for the day.
25%?
Yeah, I was thinking around 30%.
But also, I think that's probably the same amount of people who don't even know anybody in the team. It's just DC
a good point.
transplants who are just after work, let's go to the ballpark. It's $6 to get in.
Well, speaking of DC transplants, we, and just the Washington Nationals fans, not to really, take shots at them too much, but it is fun because, of course, they leave the games early because the trains don't run late. But we heard their chant after they scored a run, which I had never heard in my life before, and it was jarring. James, you're a Jets fan. Maybe you can help me out with this one here and tell them.
Yeah, every time the Nats score a run, for some reason, they go N-A-T-S, Nats, woo, kind of combining J-E-T-S and what the 7-line does for the Mets. It's really, really strange.
It was, I was taken aback. I was like, first off, you guys are chanting. You know what just happened today, right? They traded away Josh Bell, too. We didn't even mention that they got rid of him as well.
Oddly, not as eerie of a ballpark environment as I could imagine after one of the best young players in history of the game got traded. And also I guess that's just because there probably aren't that many real Nationals fans in the world, because relatively a new team, and it's relatively a city of a lot of people who move from other places to come. We were sitting next to these kids who were both wearing Nationals things, both seemed to like baseball very much. I'm like, oh, how do you guys feel about Soto? The kid leans into me and goes, I'm from Milwaukee. I'm a Brewers fan.
Well, and we met the people up top, too, that were Yankees fans. We met a couple Yankees fans. We met a couple Phillies guys, one of them who was teammates with second-round pick by the Mets, Nick Morabito, which is kind of cool. He had great things to say about that kid, which was awesome. But it was a weird feeling. You want to know where the real Nats fans were? They were at home because they were like, I'm not watching this.
I'm not going to this game today.
That being said, it would have been one of the good games for them to go to, because obviously the Mets end up losing this game. After you face Jacob deGrom and then go to Steven Nagosic and Yohan Lopez, no disrespect to them, but it's like playing MLB The Show on Legend, and then just all of a sudden putting it to rookie. It's just not the same.
Yeah, I'd love to see a statistical analysis of the relievers immediately after Jacob deGrom for the course of his career, how they fare, because the Nationals looked like they were just taking batting practice. They hit 3 or 4 home runs after they scored that first run. Francisco Lindor tied this game with a home run in, I believe it was the top of the 6th or the 5th, whenever. And so I was like, all right, we're feeling good. Let's get this win now. All right, vibes are great. And then the Nationals just teed off, and it's just crap. If all the Monday morning quarterbacks are freaking out about the Mets' lack of bullpen help. And then we had a couple rallies late, just couldn't really get that big hit. Luis Guillorme got picked off second base in a really weird play where the balls hit basically right over his head, and he just took a secondary lead, and he couldn't really get back to the bag. But Yeah, it was weird. It was just bizarre that this game broke a 7-game win streak, and Mets fans were acting like we had lost like 14 in a row.
Well, this team stinks. Don't you know that, James? Did you see
Terrible.
their trade deadline? They got worse. Don't you know? Don't you understand? They traded J.D. Davis for Darren Ruff. Do you have a clue?
We lost Colin Olderman.
Come on, man. I can't believe that the Mets did this. Can you believe that their trade deadline was only slightly good? Ugh, awful.
This loss, though, we are making jokes. It was, relatively speaking, to the single season historically bad because the Mets were the biggest favorites all year in a regular season baseball game and did find a way to lose it.
That's a curse, though. That's the biggest jinx I've ever heard.
Yeah, and also I'm sure a lot of the people out there were pretty jacked up for this deGrom start and probably made some bets. You didn't want to bet in the Mets winning because the odds were really bad. You had to lay down, $3 to make one, so you might as well bet on Jacob deGrom's over in strikeouts. Of course, Jacob deGrom's going to get more than 6 strikeouts. There's no way he doesn't do that. He had 6 strikeouts and 58 pitches through 5 innings, of course, and then he doesn't come back out for the 6th inning, and all the Mets fans lose that by half a strikeout.
Yeah, it was a tough day to be a Mets fan in terms of the wagers, I would assume, just because they probably didn't fall your way. And really, at the end of the day, Mets just lost this game. Like it stinks to lose because the Nationals are bad. They're a bad baseball team, especially without Juan Soto and Josh Bell.
Almost as bad as it gets. This entire game, the Mets faced maybe 4 major leaguers combined between the pitchers and the hitters.
Like Luis Garcia, good ball player. I'm in on this guy's swing. He's got a good swing. Yeah. We saw him hit all series. I didn't know about him really.
No, yeah. Victor Robles also seems to have been sparked now that he doesn't have to deal with the guy who stole all of his talent, Juan Soto, anymore. He was hitting leadoff and actually hitting the ball, getting on base, playing great center field. Cesar Hernandez, consummate pro. I'll say it before, I'll say it again. Nelson Cruz is still fine. He's not really good anymore, but he's still respectable.
Yeah.
Kyle Finnegan's a fine reliever.
It is what it is. You lose games. Yeah. It's a 162-game season.
It's a Game 2 curse. This is what we do. This is what we do all year.
And we kind of forgot about the Game 2 curse because we got back-to-back sweeps against the Yankees and the Marlins, and we won Game 1 in this series. So you forget that Game 2
All-Star break.
Yeah, All-Star break. Game 2 has been a little bit of a problem this year. It is what it is. The Mets still end up winning this series though because of course we go into Game 3 and it was really nice and easy. This is what everyone was just. If the Mets lost Game 3 like they lost Game 2, no one cares. No one cares. But because of on top of the trade deadline and on top of seeing the Phillies make a trade and on top of Raisel Iglesias sneaking into the Braves, plus Jacob deGrom start, plus not hitting for him, so it's the old Mets. It was the perfect storm. But if they lost Game 3, no one cares.
I also just want to put my hand up. That Raisel Iglesias trade is a little bit on me. Mets fans,
you're going to put this out there?
Yeah. I mean, I put it on our Instagram story already. I might as well just say it. We talk about my prolific jinxing powers on this show. Mark makes fun of me all the time in our private lives for it. And right after the trade deadline ended, it was like 6:08. We were still on the train. I was pulling into D.C. I was a couple high noons in a free first-class margarita deep, and I was like, oh, like, this really isn't that bad. Like, the Dodgers did nothing. The Braves basically did nothing. Like, they replaced Adam Duvall, Robbie Grossman, and pulled Jake Odorizzi. Like, we're going to get scared about that. And then
within seconds.
Not even 30 seconds later, we get the update. The Braves just acquired Raisel Iglesias, a really good reliever to add to their already very good bullpen. I was like, all right, well, that was my fault.
Hand up. That's on James. But
that's it. I'll play better next time, but what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Game 3, Mets were good. They were good. Didn't trail for a second. Pete, who has almost a 1,300 OPS since the All-Star break, blazing hot. Got brought his batting average up 25 points, like since the All-Star break, basically. OPS clearing 900.
Yeah, he had a strange home run of Anibal Sanchez. I think it was one on the patented Anibal Sanchez changeup where he just like went down and got it, just like touched it with his barrel, no follow through one hand, and just soared out of center field.
Yeah, I mean, sneaky good ballpark to hit home runs in.
Like I've been saying it. And also, got to shout out Francisco Lindor because the at-bat before this Pete home run, he grinded out a 9-pitch walk. Very, very good at-bat. He's also just ridiculously locked in right now. As this offense goes, it's pretty obvious watching him all year. Like, it's when these guys at the top are hot. And for 2 weeks, while Lindor and Pete have been hitting the snot out of the ball, like, thought we're going to score a lot of runs. And that
10-game hit streak for Francisco Lindor as well.
Second 10-game hit streak of the year.
Well, he's bad, though.
He's terrible.
He's awful. Wow, who would pay him that money? Francisco Lindor. Love that dude. He's so good. And then we got to talk about the big fellow who we've come up with a new nickname for Daniel Vogelback. Beef. We're calling him Beef because we saw him at the game yesterday and we're like, so I heard someone yell roast beef. And I was like, I think you just cut it down to beef. Because, like, the dude, he's a beefy boy. And, the grand slam was so awesome today. Like, that was the first home run for Daniel Vogelback as a Met, and it felt great.
It felt literally incredible. I can't even imagine how good this guy has been since he came to the Mets. The Mets have one loss since they acquired him. First of all, he has a home run, 2 doubles, 4 ribbies, 500 on base percentage, over 300 batting average. Small sample, doesn't matter, but I'm gonna say it. Like every time he comes to the plate, I'm like very excited.
Really, really, really good at bats every single time. And you know what? He doesn't have to face lefties either now because we have Darren Ruff who will come in and have power and take really, really good at bats as well.
We got some cool Grand Slam stats in here from John. This Grand Slam by Vogelback was the 4th Mets Grand Slam this season. All of them have come against the National League East, which I thought was pretty fun.
That's funny.
The Mets have a very good record so far this season against National League East teams, 33-13. Not going to make any definitive statements, just saying what has already happened.
Fact.
Right, 33-13 this year versus National League East. Only had 39 wins versus division all of last year. We're still playing divisional games left, so it's cool. And Vogelback is the 11th player in Mets history whose first home run with the team was a Grand Slam.
We heard some great names on the broadcast today from Gary. I know John was going to quiz us on them, so he was a little upset that Gary spoiled the fun. But you got some names like Omir Santos, Taylor Teagarden, which those are 2 deep cuts for Mets fans if you're talking about just random catchers that ran through this organization at one point.
Also have Jose Reyes was on that list. Who else on that list?
There was a bunch of names. There was 11 guys. I mean, so yeah, Adrian Gonzalez was one of them. Thank you, John, for helping us out
the most recent one. And then this whole game was tied together with Chris Bassett having another just fantastic start. This guy has been the absolute symbol of consistency so far with the Mets. Also, everyone, if you haven't listened to it yet, check out our bonus episode we put out last weekend, interview with Chris Bassett and Tommy Hunter. Also put out a banger TikTok, Chris Bassett, Mark mentioned at the top of the show today, talking about if he was an old basketball player, if he was to field a starting 5 from the Mets roster, who would he be? And he had some pretty funny answers.
Wait, we should answer that question, I feel like, too, ourselves.
Who we think the Mets starting 5 basketball?
Yeah, who would your starting 5 of the Mets be for basketball?
I've never seen any of them play basketball. I mean, probably Bassett, McGill, Taiwan, McNeil, Scherzer.
Okay, I think a sneaky one in there. I think Ottavino might be a good player. He's just casually.
Ottavino probably is nice, yeah.
And he's
very long.
New York kid, grew up in New York. You know, he shot some hoops in his lifetime.
He'd be a great modern basketball player because he has such incrable length. It's even better than his height. Just can really clog up a lane.
Pete would be like Charles Barkley. I think he would just be a beast on the boards.
Pete's the exact Pete's the meme where it's like. This is when the football players come and play pickup. Pete would just put his head down, use his elbows, move everything around, just take a shot that would clank off the top of the backboard in the back of the rim and go 40 feet high.
And he'll run back hard and be like, all right, I'll get the next one. Yeah, Mcneil, sneaky good basketball players, in case you guys didn't know. Trevor May probably would also be a good basketball player, another large human being.
I would like to see, now we're almost we should get 2 starting 5s going. I want to watch the Mets play pickup.
Well, I don't know if I want to watch.
Off-season.
Yeah.
Off-season.
Well, maybe never, honally.
I would theoretically like to see a computer reimagination of the Mets playing pickup.
Yeah, put them in NBA 2K and let's see what they look like.
We should just make the Mets roster in 2K.
Oh my god.
Sim the game.
Chris Bassett told us Max Scherzer's Draymond Green, so we have a perfect replica of what we can do there for his stats.
Exactly. Now we're going to talk about Bassett, the pitcher, rather than the point guard. 7 innings, no earned runs, 6 hits that were very scattered. None of these hits seemed really dangerous in any type of way. Just 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, only 2 hard hit balls off Bassett by the Nationals this whole game. His breaking ball command was very much back. Keith was talking about it after Bassett lost it for a few starts. Very nice to see him find it again. 11 called strikes plus whiffs on his slider and curveball in this one. After, again, he had it going for a while, lost him for a few starts, found it again. Love to see Bassett tinkering and finding success with that. And also this Nationals AAA lineup just really could not even figure out Bassett's very, very, very precise sinker. 10 called strikes on it and so many just lazy balls in play. Very nice game.
Does Chris Bassett throw a cutter?
I believe so.
Because there was, I thought I saw a 90.
He threw 17 colors today. 5 whiffs on it.
Okay, because I was going to say,
most whiff pitch.
I thought I saw a 92-mile-an-hour slider, but I just know that wouldn't make sense for how his slider runs.
His slider and cutter actually were up a tick today, or I guess yesterday when you guys listening to it. Up a tick on Wednesday from their yearly velocity.
Okay.
That cutter on the year has averaged 89. He got it up to 90 with one maxing out 92.4.
Yeah, I mean he's such a fun pitcher. He's so good. He really is just so great in this rotation, especially now behind deGrom and Scherzer. Yep, love it.
Yeah, also, I was talking about that sinker. We saw a cool stat on Twitter. I forgot who I saw it, so I feel bad not shouting somebody out. But Bassett had the highest called strike plus whiff percentage in all of base on his sinker in all of baseball.
I do remember you showed me that on the train. You guys start writing these names down. It's this. I talk about playing high school baseball.
I see them and internalize the stats, but I just don't give people credit.
Yeah.
Let's see it right now.
I talk about playing high school baseball. Your thing is saying, I saw this. I want to give you credit. I don't remember. I feel bad for not giving credit every single time.
See. I'm going to do a Twitter scroll while you talk about the next thing and see if I can find it briefly.
Yeah, I got to talk about my boy Jeff Mcneil, friend of the podcast. Shout out to Jeff. He's been scalding hot since they've went on the road. Of course, it's because he gets a little bit of sleep with the newborn baby. I'm sure it's helping to get even 6 hours of sleep's got to be an improvement for what he had. But second career 3 extra base hit game, smacking doubles all over the field today. Jeff has been just so hot. He's been so good. Such an important part of this lineup, really helps move the entire lineup around. And we also got to see Trevor May get back, but you found it?
Got the John Anderson at John PGH. He's a really, really good fantasy analyst. He just spits stats all day. He has his own models for pitching and hitting. They're actually very good. I've used them to play a lot.
There you go.
Very good follow on Twitter. John PGH.
Now, give me some Trevor May info, because Trevor May was back for the first time since his injury, and also, wait, real quick before you go into it, I heard him talk to the press or the reporters before the game or after the game yesterday, before he made his appearance, and he was talking about his IL stint, and he said basically at the beginning of the year, his arm had been bothering him, but it was like a day-to-day thing, and he's like, and it was really hard to focus on actually pitching when in the back of my mind, I was hoping my arm was going to be okay enough to actually perform. So he was talking about like the IL stint was more of like for him to get back and be healthy. There wasn't actually like necessarily anything particularly wrong, but he was like mentally, physically, it was just kind of a coin flip, and it wasn't really worth trying to go out there every day and not have it.
For sure, and it was very nice seeing him back on the mound as his Mets bullpen needs another high leverage reliever you could trust. He, I believe, will be that guy. His velo was down a tick, but it's his first major league outing in a while.
Yeah.
Something I just caught me incredibly off guard was that he just threw a splitter for half his pitches today. I don't even remember him throwing very many splitters ever, and I look back at it. This was the first year he ever actually debuted the pitch, and he was throwing it like between like 10 and 25% of the time in his outings early in this year before he went down.
Feels
so
like a
cool
year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I just that's something I forgot. I mean, we were both living in different apartments. I was like, life was we weren't with the Mets.
No.
Like everything was really different in April and May. But very cool to see him just like have a new weapon to go along with his very good fastball and slider. So cool to see that if he can actually have a third pitch, like where his ceiling could be.
Seeing what the splitter's done for Taiwan. I'm interested to see what it can do for Trevor May. The Michael Givens disaster, it is what it is. Don't really even want to talk about it. We said it already.
Yeah, who cares?
Mets won this game.
First time he allowed an earned run since June 14th.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. Mets win this game, and it really does lead us into the Big Braves preview. But before that, you guys know we have a couple things to go over here. We got the Big Three, and we got the estimate. So we're going to go ahead and get the estimate going here. We're going to bring in Johnny Stats. What's up there, John? How you doing?
What's up, guys? First and foremost, if you're starting a starting five on the Mets and Brandon Nimmo and his hustle and his tenacity are not involved,
like the Tayshaun Prince of the Mets.
Brandon Nimmo would be incredible at taking charges. I have no doubt in my mind.
He'd probably have great like rotation too. It's great footwork, lateral movement.
He'd can't see the ball, as Clyde says.
He'd put up the the Tony Snell numbers where it's like 0-0-0-0, but 40 minutes played.
He's in every play.
Yes.
Active hands. That's a good one. I missed him. I also just assume that he's like basically never played basketball in his life though.
Why? Because he's from like Wyoming or wherever he's from.
Yeah. You know how hard it is to gather 10 people in Wyoming?
He didn't even play high school baseball, so I mean,
I know. You think he played basketball? Come on.
It's probably unlikely.
You go.
I have an idea of a way we could find this out.
Oh yeah, we could ask him.
But you always need the glue guy. Speaking of a glue guy and needs, Mark, you need a victory in the worst of ways here.
Badly.
5-0. And I mentioned this a few days ago when we did the Juan Soto over under. It was like a car crash, and I saw it in slow motion. I knew that you going under, which had worked so well, it's worked like a charm for James every single week. I knew that this time it was going to come back and bite you, and I wanted to stop you, but can't get involved.
It didn't even matter though, because James hit it right on the head.
It was just a bullseye. I hit it perfectly.
Hit it bullseye.
You can't beat that.
Didn't even get a shot. What am I gonna get wrong this time? Tell me, John.
You could have gone over or under and lost.
Yeah, literally.
Well, there's some math involved with this one. So for this episode, we are going to go with the total amount of hits by the acquisitions at the deadline for the Mets. So this is Daniel Vogelbach, Darren Ruff, and Tyler Naquin hits combined. So take a second, calculate it. How many lefties are we seeing? How many righties are we seeing?
That's literally what I'm diving into right now. Is I'm looking at the Mets schedule. I mean, this will be a little bit of our preview too here. I'm just going to name the pitching matchups for the Braves at least. So we got Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson, Max Fried, Jake Odorizzi, and Strider. So Fried is a lefty, which means Darren Ruff will get some. Total hits. God, 5 games too. This is so insane. Am I going first or does James go first?
I went first last time.
James has to go first.
Oh, okay.
Thank God. I can hear his number and be like, that's crazy.
Total hits. We got 3 players. We have a lot of righties. Braves have a lefty-heavy bullpen.
It's
gonna be an all hands on deck series too, so I'm sure we're gonna burn the bench most of these games.
A doubleheader also.
Oh yeah.
So we're probably looking at between these 3 players, probably I would guess 27-ish at bats.
Okay.
28-ish at bats. I'm gonna give these guys a very clean for my 28 at bats, a 250 batting average, say 7 hits.
Oh God, that's a really good number. I am going to, man, they walk, all of them walk too. Hits are so hard to predict. I'm gonna take the over because 8 was the number that I had in my mind. 8 was what I had in my mind. James said 7. I went, that's really close to what I said. I wish he said 4. I wish he said 1. I would win there, I think. But I'm going to take the over on that one. Let's see if I can come back here and make it 5-1 or the magic number gets closer for James.
Yeah, I'd really like you going over there. The second I said 7, I wish I would have said 5, and now I'm really happy I said 7.
It's 5 games. Like you said, they're going to get probably 27 to 30 at bats. 8 for 30. That's a good series for the Mets if those guys go 8 for 30.
If you win, it'll be my guy Naquin just ruining me with a 3-hit game.
That would be perfect. Naquin, your guy, that would somehow be your jinx there by underestimating Naquin.
The best part is I have a hefty lead, and if those guys combine for 8 or more hits, the Mets probably had a pretty good series.
It's a win-win for you. You almost really can't lose.
No, oh baby. Well. Are we going to go to the preview now, or are we going to do the big 3?
Well, let's do the big 3, too, because I enjoy
while we have John here?
Yeah, while we have John here, I enjoy the big 3. As you guys know, we have a little theme every episode where one of us picks one thing that is part of the big 3 theme. This one is just going to be big boys in sports history, just big people, because the Mets have had their fair share. We've got Big Sexy, Bartolo Colon. We got Beef, Daniel Vogelback. Is there a couple other? I forget. Mo Vaughn, I think, was around for a bit. Any other particularly large humans that we can remember that played for the Mets?
I mean, everyone's favorite closer, Armando Benitez, was not slim.
Jeez, don't even bring it. That's one of my least favorite players ever. He was Armando Benitez. I got flashbacks there.
Yeah. But we just want to give some credit to Vogelback because he's been an unbelievable addition so far to the Mets. Everyone's gonna name one of their favorite big boys in history of sports. I'm gonna throw it over to Mark to take it first.
Yeah, I'm gonna get started with a bit of a cult classic here, a bit of a deeper cut, but I feel like people when they know his name, they go, "Oh yeah, I remember this guy. He had a little bit of shine in what I think was the 90s. It's going to be Butterbean, the little fat boxer that was a heavyweight and he was knocking guys out. I just remember watching him with my dad when I was really young, just highlights of him or a rerun on MSG or whatever it was. And I was like, who's this dude? He was not an athlete by any means, but he knocked out guys really, really well almost every single time. And he was in a good movie. I don't know if I can say the name of the movie because it's technically, I think, a curse word, but you guys know what it is. Johnny Knoxville. He punched him in the face for one of the scenes, and Butterbean's the man.
Butterbean's a good one. I forgot Butterbean existed. I was laughing when you said Butterbean.
Butterbean is a cult classic, like I said, and I feel like that fits perfectly with Mets and Mets fans. We love our cult classic players.
All right, John, you or me?
Take it away, James.
All right, I'm gonna pick a guy who is a part of New York sports lore, has a Super Bowl ring, had a very specific role in the NFL, but had a sneaky, amazing college career that's not talked about enough. This is Jared Lorenzen. May he rest in peace. But gone too soon, not forgotten. Jared Lorenzen, I don't think people realize in college that he was an unbelievably successful quarterback, University of Kentucky, a team that had virtually no success in football until the last 3 or 4 years when Mark Stoops got there. But sophomore year, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks. Junior year, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks. Senior year, 16 8. Not really prolific numbers for college, but as Jared Lorenzen did, he could always run the ball a little bit, here and there, as much as he could every game. Jared Lorenzen got to the Giants, was the QB sneak artist for a few years, just putting that big body through the center of the line. Jared Lorenzen's my big boy pick.
I like it. Hefty lefty, man. Legend.
Yeah. I forgot his nickname. I couldn't figure it out. You just grabbed it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John, what do you got?
He played some arena football too, I believe.
I definitely think you're totally right about that.
I think he was a football guy.
Big football guy.
X's and O's all day. All right, so Mark, you kind of stole mine. You didn't steal mine. You mentioned mine, and this is maybe chalk because I'm going with a Met who played not too long ago, and it's Mo Vaughn. But I have a reason for that, and that's because when Mo Vaughn came here, first of all, that was awesome. Former MVP. That was with Alomar and Burnitz. It didn't work out, but I can assure you that when the Mets made these moves, the line at the Mets clubhouse store at the Menlo Park Mall in Edison, New Jersey, out the door when single game tickets went on sale. There was a lot of excitement. So, but what I remember most about Mo Vaughn and his time with the Mets, not that 500-plus foot home run he hit off the scoreboard at Shea.
Yeah.
It was the sandwich that the Carnegie Deli dedicated to Mo, called the Molicious. And that's what I sent you guys earlier in the episode. I sent a random arbitrary link for all the listeners who have no idea what I'm talking about right now. And I think James opened it up and was like, what is this? And we probably cut that part out because it was kind of weird and made no sense. But I was sending a picture just to get ahead of it because I found it online. This thing, I don't know if you guys are looking at it right now. We're going to have it in post-production put in. So you guys at home, all you who are watching can see this thing. The amount of pastrami and I think corned beef on this thing. I mean, that's right up my alley. Like if I were to have one last meal, it's that.
Oh, that's an impressive sandwich.
You're saying it?
Yeah, that's quite a sandwich
on it. I mean, so
coleslaw on the sandwich is so sneaky.
What was that?
Coleslaw on the sandwich is so sneaky great.
Oh, it's amazing.
I love
it's the
coleslaw
best thing about
on my
Pittsburgh.
sandwich.
You guys have Permonti Bros in Pittsburgh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good sandwich.
Yeah, it goes coleslaw on sandwiches, nice bridges in Pittsburgh. That's the big. I don't know if the third one is there. Maybe Mario Lemieux is the third one for the Pittsburgh Big Three. But so obviously, when the Mets get Mo, my dad takes me to the Carnegie Deli and we get a Molicious. And I think between the two of us, and this is when I was like 10, and I could put down some food then, can still do it. I think we ate like a quarter of it, and that was it between the two of us.
It's an impressive looking sandwich.
Yeah.
I mean, are you guys in a deli like that? Is that?
Oh,
Of
love
course,
it.
yeah. Grow up.
Nothing better.
I feel like if you grow up in this area and you don't eat
Central Jersey, right?
no,
Central
you're
Jersey. If you grew up in
South
Central
Jersey.
You love delis.
You're South Jersey, John. I won't allow it differently. We're in North
I
Jersey.
will not accept that.
You're basically
I also-
Philadelphia.
Before we do the Jersey debate again, I want to point out that John said this guy played with the Mets not too long ago. Mo Vaughn's last game with the Mets was 2003. 19 whole years.
Almost 20 years ago.
Not that long ago. It was only 20 years.
There's
Mark and I were only 7 years old.
There's a good chunk of our listeners that were not born yet. I promise you that.
Oh, big chunk of our listeners don't know who Mo Vaughn was. Don't even know about Mo Vaughn's 1995 MVP award. 39 homers, 126 RBIs.
But yeah, back to the delis. That's one of the things that I missed the most when I went to school at South Carolina was there just was not a good deli. Like I would go to Publix to get a sandwich and it was a solid sandwich, but you don't get the bread. They don't stack up the meat like you do. They're all about like putting too much lettuce on the sandwich. Like, give me the meat, give me the cheeses, give me the good stuff. I don't want you to fill it with all this nonsense lettuce. Get that off a sandwich.
You tell me you couldn't get a good pastrami on rye in South Carolina?
Not that I know
Columbia,
of.
no?
No.
Columbia, South Carolina, go to Cookout.
Yeah, go to Cookout or some damn good barbecue.
Yeah, also, I didn't have either of those, and I also did not have delis in Columbus, Ohio. I had really good food, but absolutely no delis, and no pizza to quench that craving.
It's tough.
Bloomington
right.
had one, but that's because Bloomington's probably the elite Big Ten college town. But we don't have to get into
I mean,
that.
everything you give up in athletics, you make up in your town.
Oh man, we can get into this another time.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, best of luck. Mark, come on.
I need this one, man.
You
I
need one
this.
guy.
This is the one. Everybody who's listening, root for the boys. Root for beef.
How about this? Let's throw this in right now. If I shut out Mark for this entire year, he's got to wear a tuxedo every game in April.
In April. That's
But then what happens if you don't though? If you
Yeah, you might as well.
if you don't shut me out though, what you have to give up something too.
Absolutely not one.
That's one-sided. I do not agree to that then.
Well, I mean, you're losing 5-0. We gotta get some comedy in here.
I guess it's fair.
Keep
it interesting.
If you go down 10-0, then that deal activates.
Okay, I'll agree to that. If I go down 10-0, that deal activates.
It clicks. All right, good stuff.
All right, thanks, John. We're going to go ahead and preview the Atlanta Braves series now here on another long episode, but we had a lot to talk about. DeGrom, Scherzer, trade deadline.
We went to D.C.
We went to Washington. That was the first trip with since we've been the official podcast of the Mets. Can't wait to do more. Hopefully we will do more soon. A lot of good places that the Mets could send the boys, and we're ready to travel at a moment's notice.
Not you. You were ready to travel at the moment.
Okay, fine.
I'm not ready to travel.
I'm ready to travel at a moment's notice. You with your real job over there.
I would need some kind of notice, some actual notice, more than a moment, maybe like 14 moments, but that was not euphemism. Literally, give me like 45 seconds. I could probably figure it out, but. I can't remember in my recent memory the last time the Mets played a series that was this critical.
I feel like the big one is like 2015 Nats with the Drew Storen meltdown. I feel like that's
like the only one. The big David Wright hit, the fist pump at home plate.
I guess like the Philly series maybe in 2016 when Asdrubal hit the walk-off home run off of Edibrai Ramos and put the hands up. Like that was a really big one too.
And the 2016 Ender Inciarte series.
Yeah.
I punched a hole in my coffee table.
Yeah, like there's been them, but to be frank, the Mets haven't been very good recently. So There's not a whole lot of meaningful games when you don't really have a chance to play meaningful games in August typically.
No, and this is 5 games at home in August against your bitter rival, 2 of the 4 best teams in the entire National League. I say 4 now because the freaking Padres got Juan Soto, Josh Hader, and Brandon Drury.
And Josh Bell.
It's frustrating. And Josh Bell. I keep forgetting Josh Bell. He's really good.
He's really good.
No, this is as big a series as there is. How often do you even play 5-game series? Like, you kidding me?
That's the NLDS. This is an NLDS
Literally.
series. Except you have to play all 5 games. Even if you lose the first 3, you still have 2 more to play. Like, this series, it's so massively important. There's no other way around it. I was trying to think of a better way, but, like, this really is the most important series they've played all year. Could be the most important series that they play all year, depending on how the games and the series ends up, playing out. But 5 games at home, you have to feel somewhat good, though, the way the Mets have been playing baseball, to be fair.
I definitely feel somewhat good, especially getting these 5 games at home. But it's also become so much more critical, kind of alluded to it a minute ago. But now, whoever doesn't win this division is going into a wild card matchup with, very, very likely, the newly revamped San Diego Padres, who have gotten to this wild card status without Fernando Tatis and without Juan Soto, and even without Manny Machado for 2 weeks after he sprained his ankle. So now you're going to have all 3 of those guys. And not that the rest of the Padres lineup is even still that intimidating. Josh Bell's good. Cronenworth's annoying. Grisham has potential, hasn't played up to it.
Profar's playing well.
Good. Who?
Profar's playing well.
Profar is playing well. It's had like a week so far this week. But now it's just the way the new format works. The bottom wildcard team is going up to play against the third division winner, right?
Yeah. The
first 2 have the byes, and the middle 2 teams in the wild card, the first and second wild cards are playing a 3-game series. I don't want to play a 3-game series with anybody.
Nope. Especially not the Padres right now. They have good pitching too. So this series is not only important for the NL East implications, but also just a playoff picture because you don't want to have to play that 3-game series at all.
No, not at all. And we still have 9 more games against the Braves after this. And I think
crazy.
almost all. I think they're all coming in Atlanta. If I'm mistaken, I have the schedule pulled up right now. I'm gonna check. Yeah, we have a 4-game series in 2 weeks in Atlanta, and then the second to last series of the year, 3 games in Atlanta when we switch them out to October. So things will be a lot different then. But this is big right now.
Yeah.
It's just like you can. I mean, it's not likely because the Braves are a very good team with a lot of very good players, but you can create some kind of something of a stranglehold this series with the few game lead we have on them now, and the fact that you have 5 at home, both of your best pitchers are pitching, while arguably the Braves' second best pitcher is not.
I mean, you say that every pitcher's pitching. It's 5 games.
No, but it's a doubleheader, so they're gonna guys being called up.
Yeah,
Jake Odorizzi's pitching in this series, but and Charlie Morton is not. David Peterson is starting in this series. Chris Bassett is not. It's theoretically would be every player, but it's not because there's doubleheader.
True. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah. So this is gonna be big. This is gonna be an absolute dogfight. It's gonna be a war.
It's gonna be a war. It's gonna be a battle. I think it's gonna be electric at the stadium. I know we are gonna be there for quite a few games this weekend.
A few games.
It's
I'll be assuming 2, maybe 3.
This is gonna be playoff atmosphere. It's going to be playoff atmosphere of Mets fans because Atlanta just doesn't travel like that up here. It's a little too north.
And we had playoff atmosphere last week against the Yankees, but it was like 20-30% Yankee fans at least. This is going to be rock solid. You're going to see a couple Braves fans, a couple John Rocker jerseys. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of national attention is going to be on this series, which is pretty cool to think about.
And we do have the first official blackout, which I didn't mention earlier, but first official blackout on Friday. They're giving a free T-shirt, free black Max Scherzer T-shirt, I believe, to every single fan that comes into the stadium. 40,000 of them. So you don't really necessarily have to rush to get there, but I would because you know that you can't trust people and they'll try and get a couple multiples as they can.
Yeah, and I think there's something they're giving out on Thursday. I think it's it might just be your season ticket holders, but I know there's some kind of bucket hat thing.
Okay.
I saw some kind of bucket hat promotion. I don't think it's wide.
You're a big bucket hat guy.
I'm not a big bucket hat guy. I'm a medium bucket hat guy. I wear them once in a blue moon.
Yeah, and you did have that cursed one last year.
I know, but we're fine now. I think Saturday is also a bobblehead being given away, right?
Really?
I believe it's like a deGrom bobblehead or something. Yeah.
Big weekend for promotions. I'm sure John will be able to drop us for us. Oh, yeah, it's the deGrom K counter one. He just put that in there. That's actually a really cool bobblehead. That's a sick
cool
one.
bobblehead.
Yeah, you could change the strikeouts.
Past that, we ran through the matchups before, was just talking about the estimate. But Kyle Wright against Carrasco tonight, Thursday, if you guys are listening to this, that's going to be a good matchup, a good pitcher.
Yep.
Kyle Wright has been really good this year, a guy who's been waiting to break out. Friday night during the blackout, we have Ian Anderson, who has struggled tremendously over the last few months, his entire season. He's just kind of lost his stuff. I don't know where it is. The Saturday matinee is the one I'm really circling, though, right now because it's Max Scherzer versus Max Fried, another Max off, just like we had 2 weeks ago in Atlanta, which I respect the hell out of Max Fried. He's such a good pitcher. We got Scherzer, too. And then Saturday night, Peterson versus Odorizzi. Then Sunday, 4 o'clock game. I don't know how or why it's a 4 o'clock game. It doesn't make any sense.
How is it not Sunday Night Baseball?
I think this. I see ESPN Plus on the schedule, so I don't really know. But Jacob deGrom versus Spencer Strider. If you guys love gas, if you love velocity, if you love fastballs, if you like really disgusting sliders, this is the one.
High octane 5 innings from both guys.
Yes, intense 5 innings from each, and we don't know what the condition of these bullpens are going to look like after that. So this game could be a real tooth and nail late inning game, which I kind of feel like a lot of these games will be.
Braves are really good. You guys know we don't have to tell you that, but the Mets are also really good. I mean, the Mets got better, as we know. So did the Braves. This is going to be a slog. Like realistically, 3-2 is a very likely outcome for both sides either way.
3-2 would be, if the Mets can win the series 3-2, I'm going to celebrate.
And anything more is obviously better. But like this is a series where the Mets have a chance to make a huge, huge, huge dent in this. Because right now the Braves are 3 games back in this?
3.5.
3.5. So they have a chance to separate themselves a little bit here. I really hope they can. The Mets pitching has been pretty solid all year. Bullpen's been pretty solid. The offense has been swinging the bats better of late. I'm really excited for this one. This is the one you circle on the calendar all year.
This is as exciting as a regular season series as we're going to get in Citi Field this entire year.
So
this is it. This is the one. You guys gotta get to the ballpark, get there early, get loud. This is gonna be intense.
We're gonna be there too. So if you see us, come say what's up. We will have stickers. I promise, James. We have a surplus.
A lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring as many stickers as I can possibly bring. We'll give them out.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
But I think that's a perfect way for us to wrap up this episode here of the Mets Up Podcast, episode number 114. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, whatever you do. Make sure you follow us on all our social media at Mets Up on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. YouTube videos on the New York Mets YouTube channel. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, drop us a rating, drop us a review. It really does help us out, as well as don't forget to download and subscribe to the podcast. That also helps us out. If you're not following James on Twitter, you can follow him at
James_Schiano.
Yes, get it right. And for us, for me, not for us, for me, it's at Draftneck Mark with the C. This is an hour-long episode. It's casually 10 o'clock at night. This is past John's bedtime.
I know. I didn't even eat dinner. I got to eat dinner.
I had some good Chinese food from down the street in Astoria. But it's past John's bedtime. We got to wrap this one up, guys. We'll see you after the Brave series, hopefully with some smiles on our faces. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. See you next time.
Get up, get up, get up.